r/AskReddit. Serious. People who have lived on a supposedly haunted house. What was your scariest supernatural encounter? What was it like? I've posted this story before. My grandfather, his sister, and his wife, my grandmother, all died in the same year. The three of them were very close. My grandfather was the last to die, a week after his 88th birthday in November. He died in our house. He was living with us. Shortly after he died, my mom, these were her parents and her aunt, started finding pennies in random places all over the house, and upon closer inspection, all the pennies were from the years 1925, 1929, and 1923. These were the birth years of my grandfather, grandmother, and great aunt. Then I started finding pennies in random places. Sometimes I would get a feeling I might find one, and then I would find one. My mom and I started finding them in Christmas decorations that had been put up after my grandfather died. My mom found some in the attic above the house. The pennies stopped popping up after Christmas. Then the next couple years around Christmas time my mom started to find more pennies. I think this went on for 2 or 3 Christmas times after my grandfather died. My grandfather loved Christmas time. Then slowly stopped. My mom still has all the pennies. She almost filled a coffee mug with them. When I was growing up, my grandfather always claimed to be somewhat clairvoyant. He had died and been brought back to life a couple times in the hospital, and he had claimed to see the ghost of his mother, who died when he was 6. He also had several other paranormal experiences in his life. He was a little eccentric and always joked that he was going to haunt us after he died. Edit. For those of you that are interested, I'm going to see my mom this weekend. I will take some pictures of the pennies and post the IMG link here. I lived in a 110-year-old farmhouse out in the middle of the country about 20 minutes from any sort of town a few years ago. I was living with my parent who was renting it while their other house was being built, divorce, and I was going to start grad school the following semester. This house was well known for being haunted, but my dad never believed in any of that stuff. When I moved in I knew that this place was seriously messed up. This place had a recorded 6 deaths on the property, sickness/farming accidents, since the time it was constructed. Everyone that had ever lived there heard or saw something. The previous owner went crazy drinking himself to sleep in the basement and the one before that committed suicide. Rethinking this place honestly makes me sound insane. I stayed here, but I had nowhere else to go. The first time I noticed something was a few days after moving in. I was washing dishes. The sink was right below a window, where you could look outside in the driveway and the door leading into the garage. My dog was barking outside, so I figured my dad had just got off work and was coming inside because he got home around the same time every day. I saw someone walk into the side garage door and I could have sworn on my life that it was my dad, so I didn't panic. However, no one came into the house after a few minutes, so I went outside calling his name and no one was there. No car, nobody. My dad drove in the driveway a few minutes later. I figured at the time my eyes were playing tricks on me. The longer I lived there the more used to things I got. The dog would always bark at walls in the middle of the night, and this is a well-trained hunting dog. There was an entire upstairs that absolutely nobody stayed in, because it was terrifying up there. Smelled terrible, small, and something was off with it, like it wasn't very welcoming. Daily and nightly you would hear running footsteps upstairs that sounded like 2 kids chasing each other. At any time of the day, you would hear someone whistling outside and always the same tune, or a woman laughing outside. The worst parts always seemed to happen when I was there alone. On top of the extreme isolation, this place was terrifying. One night I was there alone because I had to work a Saturday and my dad went out of town. I woke up in the middle of the night and heard talking. Almost like a mumbling TV in the other room kind of thing. Waking up groggy, I didn't think much of it until after a minute or so I remembered. Wait, I'm here alone. I tried to make out what they were saying, but I couldn't understand it. So I opened my door and grabbed my shotgun and yelled, "Who the F asterisk 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 is here?" Dead silent. Closed my door, went back to my bed thinking to myself I was half crazy. I lay down, and without skipping a beat the talking starts again. So I balled up and searched the house. Nothing. Dead empty. The dog sleeping out in her kennel. I go back to my room a third time, and it starts again. At this point, I knew I was crazy or that was a ghost. After that, I slept with earplugs, TV, fans, you name it. I had 1 month left in the house before we moved to my dad's new place. On the last week or so I lived there, I was in the kitchen making supper when there was a knock on the door. Keep in mind this place is 20 minutes from any sort of town. It was dark, so I see a silhouette of someone standing out there, so I go and answer it. Open the door, nothing. The most scared I've ever been in my life. I shut the door, grab the trusty shotgun again, and call my dad. I told him I think someone is messing with me, or is here right now. Someone knocked on the door and no one was there. He said he was on his way home, but that was 40-ish minutes away. A few minutes later my dog starts barking, then I hear knocks on multiple windows. At this point I was cowering down in the corner of the room, never having felt crippling fear like I was feeling. Then the running upstairs, and I finally yelled, "Leave me the F asterisk 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 alone." Then it just stopped. My dad got home, I told him the story and he didn't believe me. We moved out a few days later, and I couldn't have been more relieved. I think I'm more scared now looking back on how I stayed in a place like that without realizing how messed up it was. But when people have nowhere to go, they adapt. I think a major part of the fear was the extreme isolation. Being on a 15-acre property with no neighbors, town, or friends nearby was draining. During this whole time, my dad always said he never experienced anything. The day after we moved out he finally admits that something was wrong with that place because he would always hear whistling. Finally, admitting to it. Damn. My house is haunted too, but it's just children that will make children noises. Some people will call your name when you're alone. Some will just stand in the doorway and all you see is a dark shadow. Sometimes you'll hear walking or door closing. And one time I saw an old soldier. Old soldier? Can you tell from what war he's from? It's been 3 to 4 years now, and I only remember seeing him once or twice, but only really through my peripheral. Oh, okay. Thanks for answering. Sure. When I called my mom asking her about it, she said it would probably be Confederate soldier or such. The third floor of the Victorian house I grew up in was odd. If you walked down the long ass hallway at night, you'd see what looked like a single drop of water falling from the top center of the door frames down to the floor, but they were bright white illuminated droplets. I would never see them if looking directly, but always out of my peripheral vision, in every single doorway and only when it was dark. I'd love to hear some theories regarding WTF that means. Ghost loads. The whole thread. I laugh most to this comment. Somewhere in the attic, there is a ghost furiously beating it in midair to something on Op's missing phone or tablet, or whatever. I was 7 years old. While living in this house with my family, these entities never really harmed us, but they did spook my mother and I, whereas my father apparently never experienced anything. My mother would hear whispering coming from the pipes when she would shower. We didn't have neighbors, so we couldn't blame them. Meanwhile, I would see children running around. At the time I wasn't scared of it, until one instance, I had woken up from a nap and went to another room where I kept all my toys, including a piano. I walked in and saw a boy kneeling in front of this piano, and I got happy because I thought it was a friend of mine. So I started talking to him while I went to the closet, and when I turned around, the boy was gone. I was terrified. I've posted this before, but here we go again. I was around 4 years old and in bed ready to go to sleep. As a child I was scared of the dark, so I used to put the whole bed cover over my head. Due to this, I got hot fast, so I decided to put my right hand out of the bed cover into the open. I felt bone-like fingers move down a hand and fingers. I pulled my hand back inside under the cover. I didn't know what to do. I just stay waiting, listening, but I heard nothing. I built up the confidence to have a look. When I did, nothing was there. Nothing happened for about 2.5 years until my mum found a skeleton in the living room wall. She rang the police and some specialists to come look at the skeleton. I was moved into my bedroom whilst the police questioned my mum, and I was only allowed out when they had gone. The specialists took the skeleton to do test and find out gender, age, how it had died, and how long it had been there. 2 weeks later, and my mum got a phone call from the company saying they had done the tests and that the skeleton was a woman and she had been there since early 1900s. That's all I know from what my mum told me. Edit. Wow, I made this account yesterday and already have many upvotes. Thanks. In the living room wall. Lol. That took a few seconds for me to understand. That deserves my upvote. I'm missing something. Dead person in living room. You shouldn't have told him. I hope you enjoyed this video and learning about true scary stories. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe. If we can reach 5 likes I will upload part 2. Have fun trying to get to sleep.